Welcome to the International Teacher Podcast with your host, Matt the Family Guy, Kent the Cat Guy, Jacqueline from JP Mint, and Greg the Single Guy, bringing you episodes from around the world about the best kept secret in education. You got it, international teaching. Welcome to the show. Welcome, everybody, to a new episode. This is Greg the Single Guy for the International Teacher Podcast. I'm joined, of course, by JP Mint from Mexico. How you doing, JP?
Good morning. Hello,
Good morning. And, of course, Kent the Cat Guy with a different perspective. He's on. Welcome, Kent.
Hey, great to be here, Greg. Thanks for having me.
And this is an exciting episode because we do have a returning guest. It is Stacey Stevens. She's the director of TIE Online, or what does TIE stand for, Stacey?
The International Educator.
Excellent. Okay. Hi, Stacey. How are you?
Hi, good.
And we also have with us Stacey is in the U.S., and Lissa is joining us also. She's the marketing manager at TIE Online. And Lissa, welcome from Europe, Amsterdam. Hi, Lissa. How are you?
Thank you. Good. Thanks for having me.
And I'm almost speechless right now. I've been writing a newsletter, and I've been doing a lot of stuff because we're now on YouTube. If you're a listener of our podcast, we're streaming on YouTube videos, not live, but we do record these. You can join us from either the podcast of your choice or from YouTube. Right, Kent?
That's right. Now everyone can tell how handsome I am.
Exactly. Yeah, Kent has been telling us to go to video for years, and I kept refusing, but now we are on YouTube, and we have a nice following. We'd like to have some more guests on for YouTube, but JP, you want to get us started with our conversation about TIE Online?
Yes, so we've had Stacey before, and so please go check out that podcast where we dig into Stacey's amazing background and the international journey she's gone on. But today, Stacey is here to talk about the TIE Online over 50 Teachers Over 50 Guide, something like that. I don't know what the title is. Stacey, take away.
Thank you so much. So we did want to try and find some avenues for putting information out about this guide because we're really excited about it and we're really proud about the work that we've been doing. Because, one of the things that coming into TIE, I think people know the International Educator for a lot of different things. A lot of people know us for the newsletter. Mm-hmm. But we're also a recruiting portal where people can come in and schools can come in, candidates come in, and, schools come in. We do a lot of work around evidence-based recruiting and using standards, which is one of the things I think we chatted about the last time that I was here. But this is only my first year. I think I technically just maybe hit my anniversary here pretty recently about having been at TIE for a year.
Happy anniversary!
Happy anniversary!
Officially, I'll be there January 1st a year, but I definitely started my onboarding and learning about the International Educator about a year ago. I took the job. Thank you for the balloons. I appreciate that. See, that's
I don't know how I got that.
Just a little bouquet we brought for you, Stacey.
That's what you have to watch on YouTube so you can see all the effects you guys don't know you have access to. So one of the things that when I came in as the new director, it was like, how do we serve different segments of the international community? And we've identified several different, sort of groups we'd really like to kind of focus on and think about how do we best serve them. But our very first one that we're launching right now is the Over 50 Guide, because I'll speak for myself personally. I think sometimes we don't realize that this might be an issue until you get really close to that age or you're at 50. I think I got a little bit of a preview that it was an issue because I was working in China, and this was in the past decade. And China started to enforce its age rules where it kind of hadn't enforced its age rules. So I had worked at a school that we had people who were over, one or two people who were over 65, one was over 70. And just the age that people were working at the school wasn't a concern. It wasn't an issue. And it's one of the saddest things I ever experienced was the school having to enforce these age restrictions. And the government gave us a few years to do it. But we really had to exit everybody who was over 60 in the building. And there were a lot of people who were over 40 or over 55 who would have thought, I'm going to stay here till I'm 65. So not only did we have to exit anybody over 60 over a 2-year period, it also was
What?
like for anybody over 55, it
You
was
had
like,
to
well, how
exit
long
them?
can I stay here? Yeah, we did. We did. And so I think I personally, having seen this, Lissa actually worked with me, at ISB at this time. It was one of the, I've always really embraced working from a very young age, appreciated having really experienced educators on staff, the people that were over 60 that I learned so much from, who had been in the profession for so long. Like, I think a really healthy staff, has 25-year-olds to 65-year-olds in it. And so what you're seeing in some schools, China in the country in particular, was you couldn't have anybody over 60, which ultimately meant we couldn't hire anybody over 55.
Wow.
And it ultimately meant if you were over 55 and you start to see this trend, or you start to see this situation, you start to think, well, how long can I stay at this school because I want to work till I'm 65? And so for me personally, that has a really big impact. Seeing that happen in a school, I think feeling the emotion of it and seeing wonderful educators who were over 60 who didn't have a choice but to pivot and leave the school, and then seeing how hard it was to
Well, hard
find
for
that
them to
next
pick up
position.
another. Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
this was maybe perhaps their forever school, or, stay in
Yeah.
until retire. And then all of
Yeah.
a sudden they're having to recruit at 61 or 62 or 60. That's
Yeah.
incredibly hard.
Or even 57 because they wanted to get somewhere that they could land for 7 or 8 years. Well, how long do I stay? And Lissa, you were there when this happened. Like, what was your
Yeah.
perception of that?
Well, I think kind of we were able to come there because there was such a huge turnover. So I think our year that we came in, there were like 40 or 50 new people. And at a school like ISB, that is not a typical turnover, right? So it was really interesting to come in with such a big group and kind of know that the only reason you're there is because so many people didn't have a choice, right? And, thinking about all of that knowledge and experience that was lost and, we would have loved to learn from.
A quick question. ISB, just for our listeners, can we say the name of the school?
Yeah, International
ISB
School of
stands for?
Beijing. Yeah,
Okay.
International School of Beijing in China.
Yeah, because there's ISB in Bangkok,
There's a
Thailand.
lot.
So yeah.
And
Yeah, I'm
US
sorry. I just want
and
to think about our
Brussels
listeners.
and
Yeah.
Belgrade.
Basils, Brussels. Yeah.
Well, I would just like to say that this is a subject that hits home for me. I'm soon to be 55, and it's difficult when you kind of hit the stride of your career in international teaching. You kind of feel like your options begin to limit a little bit. Now, I know that Greg is only hitting 25, so
Right.
he doesn't have to worry about it for a long
Just
time.
a young
but
pup.
I'm really curious about what kind of advice you have, because right now it feels like it's getting more and more difficult for over 55 to find those positions.
And that's really the part of this that Lissa has really taken on in terms of kind of crowdsourcing that information and the research that we've done to try and present some thinking to teachers. So I definitely want Lissa to be able to speak to this more than me, because she's the one who actually did most of the work.
Yay.
Yay!
So
The
it's-
under 50-year-old.
Yeah, I know. That's right. I am not 50. I am not quite 40. I turn 40 next year. As you know, with all of this, I've been like, well, I can do research and I can put some ideas down, but at the end of the day, like, I'm not living this yet, right? So it's really important to get as many perspectives as possible. And so what I started with, actually, I'm not really super into AI, but I was like, maybe this is a place where I can learn a little bit, as a person, like, learn about AI and go through this process and help AI brainstorm with me. So that's where I started, and gave them some prompts and kind of fed what tips did they give me, then how could I, kind of refine that specifically for the international educator. And then I ran it by Stacey, and we kind of continued to tweak it from there. And then I created like a Google form to get information from people so that we could kind of crowdsource what is actually happening in schools. We can go recruited this year, so I can go to different recruiting sites and I can see what they actually put on their sites, but what's the lived experience of people. So we did a teacher version of that survey and an admin version of the survey. And on the admin version of the survey, not only did I ask, what are the hiring policies for over 50, 55, and 60 at your school, but also of these 10 tips that I've got, what are the top ones? Which ones do you think are most important? And also what other tips might you have for, for people? From all of those different places, we were then able to, prioritize this list of 10 tips for anyone over 50. So, yeah.
Are you going to keep us in the dark, or are you going to share a couple of your tips for your
Totally,
listeners?
I would love to share.
And piggyback on that question, could you share with us a little bit how big was your sampling for your data a little bit, or is that private?
Yeah, no, I'm totally. So we had, from the admin side of things, we had about 23 admin respond. But then from the educator, like the teacher side, let me go, keep scrolling. We have 175 teachers
That's really
respond.
good. That's great.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
So that, the admin data is a little bit more sparse, but the teacher data has been growing and growing. And so kind of the way we're structuring it is we already have published actually on our social media, both on Instagram and Twitter, and then not Twitter, Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn. So we've made this a free, like the initial part is a free guide. And so our top 10 tips is free for anybody who wants to download. So our first one that, kind of, again, that crowdsourcing, we tried to order these a little bit, but that idea of demonstrating your commitment to lifelong learning, and when you're recruiting, really highlighting recent trainings and certifications and showcasing your willingness to learn from your colleagues of all ages. If you're learning the local language, like, tell people that, and just really like find those ways to showcase that you're a lifelong learner. And one of the really cool ways that we do that with TIE is our evidence-based portfolio. So as somebody who's recruited, several times, I've never had anything like that where I can actually get in there and show off what I've done, not just words, right? And I think no matter what age you are, that's really valuable. But, on both ends of the spectrum of, young teachers trying to get into the profession, but then also more experienced teachers, I think this is such a really cool way for people to be able to show I'm committed to learning, and here are some of the really cool things that I've done.
And I was thinking the recent professional development is really important because, when we're getting into our 50s, we've got a shopping list of PD. Like it could be a page and a half just on its own. So to highlight the most relevant and most recent PD, showing that you're not done learning, you're still getting trained, you're still interested in learning new things. But I also liked what you said about learning from your colleagues. And I think that could be like a bullet point in your job description, where you're not just mentoring new teachers, but you're also it's a cycle. You're learning from the new teachers because they're fresh out of teachers college. They've got new things. They're learning about AI faster than us and then teaching us about it.
Yeah.
Faster than us? No.
I will speak for myself. I don't know anything about AI.
There are two tips that really resonate with me as somebody who's also in the over 50s category. And it is that idea. One of the tips is really you got to plan backwards. If you want to work past 60, 65, and I think this is where a resource like this is helpful. knowing where the opportunities are and like focusing your search, because it's not everywhere, but it's also not as bad, I think, sometimes as we think it is as well. Like there are some countries, it's not all countries, but you really kind of have to plan backwards. And I think at 50, you have to start thinking about what's the trajectory of my career? Am I going to be more of a stayer? Is it like I want 2 more jobs? I want 3 more jobs? And then kind of planning that backwards, knowing where you can look and at what points. And I think the other thing is that strikes me as really important is I think sometimes 90% of people are going for 10% of schools, and you have to open your net and your scope wider, right? And I think you have to maybe recalibrate your expectations for what that salary is going to be. You know, a lot of times we're only given X number of years. So maybe I came in at my last school at 10 years and then I stayed 10 years. I'm going back to 7, 8, 9, 10. And it's like, you've got to recalibrate, I think, for that pay cut that you're going to take when you've reached up to 20. It doesn't work the way it works in some
salary
areas. But like
caps
most
for entering.
I wish somebody had told me that when I was 35.
Yeah.
Right? 5 years into my career. I mean, not that I would have listened. I mean, when I was younger. Well, wait, I'm only 25. Okay, so when I was younger, and I got into teaching at 30 at overseas right away, no one said that to me. So it's interesting, Stacey, that you say plan ahead and think backwards, because even if they don't listen to you, we're still going to preach that. But it's interesting you say that, because I never had any advice. And I'm so glad you guys are on to give us this advice, because now even it feels like it's too late. But I'm going to stay until like I'm 80. They're going to be kicking me out. And I'm going to start planning backwards. I'm going to start planning with my end in mind. But now that I'm much more mature.
And working backwards, right?
Right. So 100 and back, I'm going to start planning. But in all seriousness, if we have our listeners that are new to this or looking at international, no matter what age they are, they need to start thinking the long run. And as they learn about schools, right, as they learn and get involved in international, they need to learn and think about, steps, right? How long are we going to stay there, et cetera. That's a lot to think about without the big picture that we have, right? After all this wisdom of being overseas in multiple schools, but it's great to hear from you and to hear from Lissa being at multiple schools about this. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take us off point. I mean,
Great.
Lissa, you only give us one, though, Lissa. Can you give us one more from your top 10?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Stacey
two
gave
more.
us 2 more.
Yeah,
love it.
we
Cool.
had demonstrate your commitment to lifelong learning, plan backwards, calibrate your expectations. That's the one that Stacey highlighted too, is like, thinking about that salary and benefits, and also really being more like, be open-minded to schools and countries that you might not have thought about before, right? Like,
Or have
you
heard
are,
about.
yeah, exactly, right? Like,
It's hidden gems.
there are so many hidden gems out there, and so just kind of be more open-minded about that. I think maybe an obvious one, but seek high quality healthcare. As you age, you never know what's going to happen, so start to identify countries with quality healthcare systems. And so that's actually when we're kind of working on 2 versions of this, one for anybody, and then one for inside of Thai, so once you're a member of Thai, and the one that we're going to publish inside of Thai. When we did the surveys, we asked people about the healthcare in their countries. We've made I have like a table of the country and what people report the healthcare to be, and then what people report, like, do they hire in general over 50, over 55, and over 60. So you can kind of see, I mean, we don't know for sure. I haven't lived in all of these places, right? And that's also where the more people we get to take these surveys, the stronger the data is. Thinking about doing that one of the other ones is check retirement age.
Can I just interject? So
Yeah.
I was thinking like almost like a Venn diagram where you have countries that accept over 50, 55, 60 and good healthcare, and then finding that sweet spot in the middle, because not everything they can be mutually exclusive, right?
You're such an educator.
There is, JP Mint, there's another circle, the circle of the countries that will hire Greg.
Right.
That overlap.
Right.
That's
Right
that's
in the
another
middle,
circle
Kent.
you got to put in there.
It's in the middle, Kent. It's in the middle,
In the
and
middle.
people
Just a
can
little
join
overlap on the side.
So I'm
But I
part
think
of
that's
Ty.
part of our vision for doing this work is how can we crowdsource information? You know, one of the things that we have, you know, I think we have better maybe access to different people in the community because of who subscribes to the newsletter and who follows us on our social media channels, is how can we crowdsource and do some data analysis for people? You know, another part of the inspiration of this was those over 50s Facebook pages and the questions that come out. Like, people are individually sometimes trying to crowdsource through Facebook and social media. And that was one of the things that we're like, you know what, as this organization that serves the international school community, we can be that intermediary that's crowdsourcing, collecting the data, updating, trying to like this isn't a time to cast a wide net everywhere. This is a time to have some data, have some knowledge, and then focus on where you can really like look for schools in certain places because they hit those markers that allow you, if depending on your age, to apply there. So I think that's one part of the vision was how can we be a data analytics to help point people in the right direction for this using our resources that we have.
Stacey and Lissa, sorry to jump in here. So it sounds like to me as if this might be an ongoing project where you continue to update your understanding of countries and hiring over 50. And the second part of that I wanted to ask was, you kind of gave us a little bit of the free version. Is there a longer version that's available for purchase, or is that the longer version available to members of Thai Online? How do the two different versions work?
Yeah, the longer version will be part of Thai Online. So not necessarily available to everyone, but as part of the free version, we are giving a discount code for those over 50. So get the free version. Me. Yeah, yeah, download that free version. And then there's a discount code in there that will get you into Thai for not as expensive. And so yes, then our goal with this is just to continually update it. So instead of making a PDF of this, I've done it in Canva so that we can just give you the Canva link. And then whenever we get new data, we'll be able to update it. And so right now, some of the things that we have in the internal version is that full country list of all of the countries that we've had reported on, and reporting on what their healthcare quality is and what their age is. And then, sorry, I also have a cat. And he's deciding
I heard it.
like, right now.
Lissa the cat woman.
Kent and I have been looking at each other like, you hear the cat? Yeah, I hear the cat.
JP thinks it's me making the noises. She's like, I don't want to stop.
No, like all of a sudden he's like, now is the best time to let you all know I'm here.
He's agreeing with you. Your cat's agreeing with everything
I
you
love
say.
that.
He's really excited about this guide.
Yeah.
So that's
Lissa, are you still putting out the Google form or because I was thinking we could put that in the show notes. So if people are listening to this and they want to participate in it and they have some information.
Absolutely.
Okay, fantastic.
Yep. And what we've done too is we've also, what I've done in the actual free guide is given the links to those forms as well. So, you know, if you download the guide, then you can also just fill out the forms from there. But yeah, our goal with this is just to have it be a continually updated resource. And as we get more information and as we continue to analyze the data, we feed it back to the community so that, you know, there's more and more. And our kind of where we're at is like, it's not perfect. It's not completely done, but we'd rather give a version of it that we can update than, you know, wait a couple of more months to give this to people, right? Like, let's just get it out and know that it's not the most perfect thing ever, but what is ever perfect, right? So
I just deleted when I did see your 3 page, I think it was a 3 page sort of that free version on out on LinkedIn. And I deleted that day my photo of countries with no visa restrictions or something, because I know I've had that photo in my camera roll like as a favorite for 3 years, so I know it's super outdated. So I was excited to see that you are putting it out, even if it's not complete, even if it's not perfect. It's going to be more up to date than this 3-year-old photo that I saved.
Stacey and Lissa, let me ask you guys a question. If there's more competition for jobs, let's just say more young teachers enter the field of international teaching, does that make over 50s more important for their experience, or does it mean that they might be the odd person left out in the hiring? What are the kind of trends you guys see for over 50s?
Well, I think first off, I don't think that there's more competition for jobs. I think there are more jobs than there are people looking for jobs. There's actually less competition, because think of the number of international schools and the numbers that are growing and the numbers that are and those need people to work in them. So I would say that there's what most people would say in the recruiting field is that there are fewer candidates now for the number of jobs
Totally
that we
agree.
have, not more candidates. So I think that makes the over 50s like even more critical. So I think there's two things that we're combating here. And I think one of them is like the legal requirements of a country, but one of them is the internal bias of people who hire. And like, what's that value? And I think that's where like Lissa's tips are, like, you lean into your experience, you lean into the things that you offer. Don't shy away from them, because these are assets. I think so. I think this is really like two things. I mean, we're addressing one thing, which is the legal piece, right? Like, where can you go? Like, who does hire? What are the country policies? But there's also the ageism piece, as well. And I think just by even talking about over 50s and having this conversation, because I mean, really, when you think about most of the people in our schools are 25 to 65, over 50 is a hugely significant portion of the number of people currently teaching in international schools that cannot and should not be dismissed because of their age. Of sometimes there's country requirements, but there are schools and there are people who make choices around age, as well. And so I think that that's a bias that we also need to talk about, and address. I think by having this conversation about over 50s and the tips that Lissa has created about, demonstrating your cultural competence, demonstrating like all of your professional learning, those are ways for people to lean in and highlight all the value that they bring.
I have a good question for you, an aching, like a burning question, and maybe you two can, I know you two can answer it, but here it is. I want to know, as I'm reaching in the age past 25, I want to know, I have this vision that there are some schools that will look at a quality candidate and they will find a way to get that person into their school. No matter what, they will find a way as a consultant or as a different kind of, they'll find a loophole somewhere in their government to try and get you to their school. And do you agree with that? I mean, is this am I just dreaming here, or is it possible? Because there are people in countries teaching at up to 70, that I've heard stories from.
I think that depends on your
Just say yes.
interpretations of a country's rules. But I don't know that that would be something that I would be expecting to happen for me. I think most schools
Yeah, but
are going to
depending
follow
on
the
it.
rules of the country.
I have no expectations. I'm just dreaming here, because I think there's got to be some out there. And I know certain countries, certain areas are more likely to be able to do that because they'll have higher age groups. And I'm looking forward to looking at that information, both in Thai and the free version. I want to see both of them at some point as a Thai member. I can't wait to see it because I'm looking now at schools in the future. And I'm just hoping that there's more out there. So my dream is to stay in as long as possible. And I just see these next hurdles coming up. And I'm not alone. I think there's a lot of over 50s and mid 50s that are looking at this, and I'm a little bit scared because I don't want to leave the position. I want to be one of those guys that's teaching at 70 and they're all talking about me. Oh my God, he's like 70.
We do
he's
talk
teaching.
about you as it is, Greg.
Just ignore Kent.
Hey, that makes me think, Lissa, is there, let's just say you're a 55 to 60 teacher and you've got your foot in the door. What are the next challenges for that teacher? I mean, are there challenges of staying on the job? Are there challenges? You mentioned healthcare. What other sort of challenges might an over 50 teacher have to keep an eye on?
As someone who's not over 50, I don't want to overstep. um,
Do I need to answer that, Kent? Just
no,
kidding.
but I think networking, and one of our other tips is about networking and connecting. And I think it's really important no matter what age you're at. But as you get older and you've worked in more schools, making sure that you are keeping those connections and you're seeking out insights and leveraging those connections, right? If you've worked in a couple of schools, a lot of people, and imagine if they've all worked in a couple of schools, how many more schools you can know about by just staying connected to those people.
I will say this, Lissa, sorry to cut in, and I'm sure Stacey will back me up on this one. When you're an old teacher or an older teacher, it seems like everyone you know is gone.
What are you saying about Stacey? Be nice.
I mean, the one thing I've noticed is that the more years you stay at a school and in the profession, it seems like the less people you know.
You're looking around going, where is everybody? Who are all these new people?
I'm like, I don't know these
True.
people.
Yeah, but those people go
Sorry,
somewhere
Mom.
else, and then you so I'm a big component for, or a big advocate for LinkedIn for that reason, because I think LinkedIn keeps you connected to all your colleagues, to all those people you met at conferences. I mean, think about a 50-year-old, how many conferences and workshops and trainings they've gone to and how many people they've met. So they're like PTC has been huge for me, taking a course with the Principal Training Center, 40 people in my course alone, and those people know people. So your network is absolutely growing.
All right, let's take a moment for a little commercial about how to get in touch with us. You can, of course, find all four of us at the itpexpat.com. That's www.itpexpat.com.
Or you could also find us at email at internationalteacherpodcast@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing from you.
Or if you're into Facebook, we have a new Facebook group at www.facebook.com/groups/ITPexpat, where you can find all kinds of inside information about ITP Expat.
You can also find us on Instagram at ITPXpats. That's with an S. ITPXpats is our handle.
All right, and thank you, listeners. We have over 100 countries represented by our listeners, and though we're not monetized, we are here for you, and we would like to thank all of you for listening. So let's get back to the show.
I was just going to say, it seems to me as I get closer between 55 and 60, my peer group is retiring. My peer group is,
Yes.
just this week, I'm saying goodbye to 3 colleagues who are retiring from the job as a requirement of the school or the company. But it just feels like to me as if it can be difficult to maintain a social life as an older teacher sometimes because it's not that people don't like you. It's just that the people that you like are leaving. So it's one of those challenges that I've experienced.
I think that's true. That, especially if you're in a country that doesn't hire, past 60 and you're at 57, you're going to look around and you're not going to have a lot of peers, your age as well. So I think that those are legitimate things. And I think that's why, where are those countries that don't care or hire up to 65? And so it's that planning backwards piece, because you're going to find more people in those places. I mean, I think one of the things that was shocking to me about what happened at the International School of Beijing and exiting teachers is you went from being sort of like median age to looking around and being like, I'm in the category of the oldest people in the building.
Yes,
Whoa.
precisely.
Like Kent. Yeah.
That's exactly right.
I'm going to plug
Precisely.
one thing here. I'm going to plug there's a Facebook group called Over 50's International Teachers, and
Yes.
I'm on it. I've been on it for a long time, and it's a great group. There are 4.5 thousand subscribers to that group. Whether or not they're active, I don't know. They might be already retired. Who knows? But, this is a target for those of you listening that you can look at it. It's a private group. You have to get into it. But I think it's worth using as a resource. I'm excited that Ty is focusing on this. We have talked about this in the past and featuring some more episodes about it. So we've been reaching out, and we're going to continue to reach out and have some more episodes about the over 50s. But I'm glad that Ty is doing this, because the fact that you guys are showing up this idea of let's talk about over 50s, because it's such a resource to be in Thai, first of all, but now you're branching out and you've started something new, and I'm excited about that. So what else can we expect from this action that you guys are taking? Can you give us some more broad strokes?
Something else that's part of this is kind of not quite broad yet, but something else that's part of the guide is it got us wondering how many schools in Thai are recruiting for
Ooh.
over 50 or over 60 or no age limits. And so that was also really interesting to have that data and get in there. And so one of the things in the free version is that actually over 62% of schools in Thai either have no age limits that they've reported, or their age limit is over 65, like 65 or
62.
over.
Wow.
62% of your
62%.
population of schools active in
Yeah.
Thai.
Yeah.
Wow. And you have
Yeah.
a lot of schools. How many schools are active with Thai? Do you know? Put you on the
we're
spot.
Yeah,
right in
I'm
the
not.
period of we're right in the period of schools signing up, so that's kind of in flux.
Oh, okay.
Right now
I'm
it
sorry
goes
about
up and
that.
down
Yeah.
from the beginning. Yeah, because it's recruiting season, so
We're going to
that
say
changes
a lot.
changes quickly. many.
Yeah.
Massive.
Yeah.
Massive crowd.
Something I wanted to bring up, maybe like rather obvious, but something I just thought of was that, when we are domestic teachers, like working in our home country, we have a safety net at this age. In our 50s, we have seniority in schools. We don't get moved. Like if we're in a district, we can stay as long as we want in the school. And then there's, at least in Ontario, where I was teaching in Canada, there was a magic number. That magic number was years of experience plus your age. And when you hit that magic number, you had the option to retire. You didn't have to retire. I think there was like sort of a window of time or a range of time, but that is completely ripped out from under you when you are overseas. And it might
Good
be a
point.
bit of a wake-up call to some of our listeners when they are thinking, I have a lot of clients that are veteran domestic teachers and want to go overseas now that their children have left the nest. They're ready to travel. They're ready to explore the
Good
world.
timing.
They have less material goods or whatever. They're ready to sell their house, all of that. But now they have to realize that safety net is ripped away, and they don't know if they're going to be able to stay longer than 2 years.
Well, and that's one of the things that we wanted to do, with the data was, because Greg, I'm in that over 50 group, which for me was part of that personal inspiration, is seeing that group of, 4,500 people asking questions amongst themselves and saying, how can we put something out there that helps and supports that group of people? It's it's one person asking one question for themselves. And so how do we put and analyze some of the data? And so, what we're working on is saying, like, here are the top 5 countries with the greatest number of international schools that meet your needs, right? So rather than being like school-based, it's like, all right, like China's kind of off the table, more or less, right? But where are other countries that have a lot of international schools but will hire over 60, over 65? So that I don't know that the answer is, but let's just say one of them is Vietnam. Then I know that this is a place that I can really focus my energy and my efforts and the schools there. Like, so how do we take data and analyze it and give people some guides of where to look and where to go? And so that's really one of the other things that we're really trying to put, on the table for people like your clients, JP. You only have so much energy and so many time and so much resources. Where are you going to focus your efforts and energies that has the highest potential yield?
So it's going to
there's
take
no
some
point.
feedback from the teachers and from the schools, and we need to get this rolling so we can get that before I turn 60.
Exactly.
Because
Lissa, I'm wondering, are there any other, I mean, I know that there were a total of 10, we've only gone through a few of them, but are there any other that are pressing you want to share with our listening audience?
I think one that I really like as well is updating your approach to recruiting, just kind of thinking about recruiting a little bit differently. And that's where we really highlight our evidence-based portfolio that allows you to set yourself apart. But it might not just be as easy to show your resume to somebody, and maybe in a lot of portals you're not even coming into like across recruiters because there's some whatever internal like red flag. So really just updating your approach and widening your approach and figuring out what might you do differently as you become more experienced and have so much more to share, and ensure that you're actually able to share that.
That's very good advice as far as you may have always relied on one recruiter or one method, one job fair in the past. You may need to widen your net. Stacey also brought up the idea of, looking at not just those 90% of the schools. What was the fact?
It's like 90% of people are going for the same 10% of schools.
Yeah, right. So widening your net, widening your ability to recruit in various portals, various platforms. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Is there one region, and this might not be an actual answer to this, is there one region of the world where an over 50 might have the most success?
Central America, Southern, let's see, I wanted to say South America and Central America come to mind to me right away. I don't know that's the answer, but that's the feeling that I get. Maybe Stacey and Lissa have a different opinion.
Lissa's been looking at the data.
I'm looking at the data. Like based on what people have reported, and living in Europe, I think Europe might, especially like Western Europe, might be a place. They don't have a lot of restrictions. Like, the Netherlands doesn't have any restrictions on,
Wow.
like they hire over 60. And so I think, but again, that's the calibrating of your expectations a little bit, right? Because
That's true.
now in our third year in Western Europe, it is very different. So there's just a lot it's different, like salary expectations, package expectations, but it's also a pretty cool place if you've been able to be somewhere during your super high earning years that you can now be ready to pay your own rent and pay your yearly flights. It's got really great healthcare, like pretty across the board. What people have reported is that most countries in Western Europe have pretty great healthcare and not so many restrictions on hiring ages.
It sounds like there's no right answer. It sounds like it depends, like everything else in education and in international education. It sounds like our listeners are going to have to say, I don't have a magic bullet. There's no right answer. We have to look at all of these things and look at that question, that the top 10 that you provide for the free, and start thinking, how do I fit all these pieces together to come up with my answer of what regions to look at, right? Because it's just, and I'm not looking at data. I'm waiting to look at the data. I can't wait to, and I know it's going to be a while to look at more data, to have a lot more countries, a lot more feedback. But I'm excited about that. It's too bad that we don't have a magic bullet. There's just more questions that I have after talking to you guys. More and more questions.
Let's be clear. I'm glad it's not just one country or one region.
Well, so
And
am I.
everyone's going to go there.
Yeah.
We're all going to your house in Mexico.
I'm glad to hear that there are a number of places around the world that will accept over 55, over 60, and that will have great health care and have a great quality of life as well. We haven't talked even about, pollution or war torn countries or that kind of thing, or weather, like weather catastrophes. So there's a lot of things to consider when we are looking to move somewhere. But it's great that you guys at TIE have already started to think about some of those factors. Like, some of us might not have even thought of healthcare. I personally would have completely forgotten about it, but you're right. As you're getting older, of course, that has to be on the forefront.
Lissa, do you guys have an extra room in your apartment? Because it sounds like Amsterdam is a great place to go, and I don't mind cats.
That's the cat room, okay, buddy?
Ask your
You're
husband
after
if
the
you
cat.
I've seen her apartment. There's no extra room.
Sleep in a closet.
No, we don't. We don't even have a door to our bedroom. Remember, we pay our own rent.
Wow.
It's a good thing I'm kidding.
And it's
So,
also, I mean, honestly, this is our last year here. We're leaving because it is a really, as in our prime earning years, right? In our late 30s, early 40s, we're looking at where can we be so that we then can retire someday. We can be financially independent so that when we get to 55, 60, we can choose to go wherever we want. We can choose to go to a school that isn't the same school everybody wants to go to, right? And I think even, talking about everything's subjective, right? So when there's a million, you search online, top schools, like top international schools or tier 1 schools, everybody thinks differently about those things, right? And so I think same with, as you get older and you're looking at all of these different things, you have to decide what's important to you, what makes your top tier school. And maybe when you were in your 30s, that school wouldn't have been your top tier. But now when you've got more data and more information, you're like, this now becomes a top tier in the current stage of life I'm in now, right? And that's what we really want to be able to provide and show people is, here's some data for you to take in and what's important to you, and use that piece of the data to decide where you go.
Would you guys be willing to publish this as a book in the future? You ever consider that?
I don't have time, Kent. I'm sorry. Oh, are you talking to our guests? I'm sorry. Stacey, are you going to write a book? Let's go.
No, we're more pamphlets.
Okay.
Resources.
Well, and I'm thinking keeping it up to date is so important, right? Like that 3-year-old photo doesn't help me 3 years later. So,
but we can head to tie.
Yeah,
I think
the power's in the up to date.
Yeah, that's the power of crowdsourcing as well. We're trying to use a mix of what's the data, the information that's out there, but then what do people say? And kind of using those as two legitimate sources of data and kind of bringing those together. So, Lissa's done a really great job of making sure that we can keep updating it and those things stay live, and that it is something for us to easily go back and update over time, and that it's not once published and then done. And then it's dated in a year.
Yeah.
So, Stacey, I have a... Oh, yeah, go ahead, Lisa.
Sorry, really quick. What we're doing in TIE is giving you full access to the data. So we'll analyze some of it for you, but then also we're just giving you the spreadsheets so that you can see what the responses are to people, from people, so that you can analyze it in a different way that, if you want, and you can really use that to make your own decisions.
Stephanie, Stacey, and Lissa, can you remind us one more time what the benefits of the membership are? Obviously, access to the over 50 research. What are some of the other benefits for the annual membership for TIE Online?
Yeah, so because we really are about the evidence-based portfolio, that's something that you can use when you recruit, but it's also something that you can develop as you go, document your professional learning, kind of chart your journey, track your journey in international schools. And when you're ready to recruit, you flip a switch. That evidence-based portfolio is also shareable outside of TIE. So it can go in your resume, it can go in your cover letter. We don't have every school in the world in TIE, but we do have a way for you to take what you've done and share it with any school that you want to share it with. And those are really the big benefits for us, is how do you kind of document your career and be ready when you're ready to recruit, when you decide it's time for you to recruit.
Another thing that I really like in Thai is I can choose a set of standards. There's several of the international standards, and I can choose that set of standards, and then I can actually write about myself and my experience with that standard. So, not only just evidence, but I can also just give a little bit of a narrative of here's this standard. And so whether I'm in a position that I've been doing those standards or looking to go into a leadership position, I can speak directly to those standards that maybe I don't obviously have lots of experience with, but I can show you how I can grow into that too.
Can I flip a little bit too? Because I know all three of you have been talking about how it's a benefit for the teacher to present themselves. I think Thai has always been important for me to research, to look or learn about schools and make connections. And I love that. And that's thinking about the older Thai, like when it started out, it was advertising and newsletters. That a lot of that's still there, if I'm not mistaken, that we can really learn about the names of schools, the schools that are out there in those little places that, like you both mentioned, those gems, those little schools in countries we've barely ever heard of. And you can say, wow, there's a school there. I want to go look into that. So for me, it's a good starting point on my recruiting journey each time I do it, or when I'm starting my journey, is to go into Thai and look at some of those schools too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great resource as well,
I
just
don't
to
get
learn
paid
about
for
who's
this.
out there. Who's out there.
Stacey, I have a question. We started thinking about, the teacher guide for over 50. Have you got other guides in mind? Are you thinking of guides versus like
Yeah.
Good question.
nationality? Are you thinking age groups,
What's up?
demographics, LGBTQ?
Well, so I think some of the ones that we'll do next will be some regional guides. I was just at Tri Association that was held in Mexico City. And one of the things that was really powerful was the number of young teachers who came up to us who were, maybe they're nationals working in an international school, but they know they have this international experience. And they're like, how do I go abroad? How do I take this experience that I've had in an international school as a national hire, and can I find a job internationally? Can I go internationally? Because that's another place where there's a lot of rules and restrictions on people. Is like, who will a country give a visa to? Like, do they have to have been educated in English? So it's one of the next guides that we're looking about doing one for Latin America, and partnering with some of the associations and looking at how can we get some information there to kind of guide people who are interested in this lifestyle and in this opportunity and maybe want to leave their home country, but they've already got the international school experience. But they need to know how to navigate leaving their home country. And again, where do I spend my time? Where are the places that if I'm a Mexican citizen I'm going to have, what countries is it going to be easiest for me to get a visa to and has a large number of international schools? So we're really looking at targeting certain areas like that. Some of our biggest people who follow us on social media and the newsletter are in India and the Philippines. So how do we craft some resources for some of the people that we know are following us and paying attention to these conversations the most, who also, like people over 50, have some additional challenges in navigating this career and this lifestyle and getting out there? So how can we start to serve we're not a monolith internationally. So how can we start to look at some of the demographic breakdowns that are substantial? Like over 50 is a substantial demographic. People from India would be a substantial demographic in looking at and thinking about international schools. So that's the territory that we're really hoping to move into and really, focus on in the next couple of years, is developing more bespoke resources to serve groups who are really interested and engaged in international teaching, but maybe could use some additional support because of various situations and issues in just their recruiting process.
And then I think too, how do we overlap them a little bit? Because, we if we've got that group of people who are going out into international for their first time and, you know, hoping to learn more, well, then how can we look at our over 50s guide as well and say, hey, if you really want to go to a school or a region that hires experienced educators so that you can learn from them. Because I know for us, when we came abroad and I was in my 20s, it was amazing to have people who were older than me and I could immediately start learning from. You know, a lot of times your PD is within your own school. So how can we intersect these so that we can say, hey, go learn from these really awesome people that are more experienced than you as you gain your experience?
I think that what you have both said about Ty, the international educator, is perfectly fit with our podcast. Our listeners are new teachers. Our listeners span the globe. Our listeners are local, national teachers in international schools looking for a way into the international global schools out of their own country. And we have over 50s and we have the young ones. So I think it's perfect. And I love having you guys on because it fits so well with our listenership. And it's going to spread. It really is. And it's exciting to see where Ty is going, Stacey, especially with your leadership and with your team like Lissa and the others. You're going in so many directions. It's a big undertaking for Ty to do that. Even just that little national group that you were talking about, Stacey, that's going to be a huge undertaking to service and provide action and data for the Latin American communities in general. That's huge, right? As well as this over 50s where we keep having all these questions and it's going to take a while to answer them. But I love the way it connects with us personally, me, our podcast, and our listeners. And thank you, the listeners that have stuck with us through this long conversation that we keep talking. There's a lot to talk about, right? Kent, we're getting close to the end, aren't we? So we should probably I don't know.
Well, I want
Kent's
to know
so
if
good at
Lissa
this.
has a police story because
Yeah.
we've heard.
Well,
Go back
it
to
does-
Stacey's
JP,
episode.
the question is there enough time for all of Lissa's police stories? That's the biggest question.
Because you can go back to Stacey's episode to hear her police story and her 3 things she comes with. But Lissa, we haven't talked to you. Do you have an interesting police story for us to finish off with?
Honestly, I think my superpower is that I've been pretty good at avoiding the police.
Excellent.
Or customs.
Notice she didn't say that she hadn't done anything. She just said that she's been
She didn't
avoiding.
admit it.
She hasn't
Right.
gotten caught.
I lived
How
in
about
Kuwait for
customs?
6 years, right? I lived in a dry country with no pork. That doesn't mean that I didn't ever drink. So
I
you
have no idea
know,
what you're talking about.
no
Yeah.
idea.
Right. Well, Kent,
Yeah. Well, let's go around the horn to get final thoughts. So I'll start with the co-hosts, and then I'll go to you, Lissa, and you, Stacey, and then I'll bring us out. So let's go around the horn. Final thoughts. JP Mint, final thoughts.
yeah, I am looking forward to seeing this guide, and thank you so much for coming on and telling our listening audience about it. We'll be sure to do our best to propagate the news of this guide to every social media that we are involved in. So thank you, Greg.
You.
I just
That was
want.
my line, JP Mint. Greg.
Don't take his line.
I only get 10 of them, Greg.
I do want to say thank you to Lissa and Stacey for joining us. Kent's going to thank you, of course, for the show. But personally, I wanted to remind our listeners, if you're listening to when you're listening to this episode, if you want to know more about Stacey and about the International Educator, it was episode 88. And we did that together, and it was an enjoyable time. I'm glad to have Stacey back. And Lissa, you're welcome back with us, too. That's what I wanted to say. And I'm still going to move into your apartment when you guys leave because I want to go back to Europe.
As a matter of fact, he's broadcasting from the basement as we speak. He's in the
always
house.
looking for-
He's in the
they're
house.
They're always looking for cat sitters.
Lissa, that brings us to you. Final thoughts, Miss Lissa.
Thank you a lot for having us and for letting us showcase this. We really see, one of the reasons I've loved working with Stacey the last couple of months as I've done this, is that looking at it as a service, and how can we be a service to international educators, right? We are the international educator, and it's been a service for decades. So how can we continue to update and share? And that's just been really fun to be a part of.
Stacey, final words.
Yeah, no, I'm just deeply appreciative of the three of you and, our ability to connect with you to help get this word out, because I think we are, as we serve the international community, how can we also involve them in that service and helping each other? And that's what I'm really excited about, is the fact that it's not a static guide, that we can keep updating it and that the data is real time. And I'm just really excited about these new projects that we're doing to think about the underserved in our community. How do we serve the underserved? And that's really important to us. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, that's going to do it. I would like to thank our very special guest. I'd like to thank Lissa Layman. She is the marketing manager at Thai Online, and she would love it if you would check out their Facebook page and I believe the Instagram account. Did I get that correct?
And LinkedIn.
Yeah, and LinkedIn as well. Go check that out. She'd be very happy. I would also like to thank Stacey Stevens, I believe, is the director of Thai Online, and she would love it if you would sign up for an annual membership and take advantage of their resources, their guide of finding teaching jobs over 50, as well as their, what do we call this? Their hiring portal, where they put in, where you can put in it's the evidence-based hiring portal. She would love it if you got involved in that. Stacey, thank you so much.
Thanks.
I would
Thank
also like to thank my co-host, JP Mint. You can find her at jpmintconsulting.com. Thank you, JP Mint.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I would also like to plug her latest blog, Advanced Recruiting Tips. Go check that out. And is that everyone? Is there anyone else? I'd like to thank my co-host, Greg, the single guy. Make sure you purchase his book, International Teaching, The Best Kept Secret in Education. You can find that at www. Is that too many? .amazon.com or wherever you buy your final books. I'm Kent the Cat Guy. You can find me in room 303. We will see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.